Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about ethical non-monogamy, and I'm going to be using the term ENM throughout the video just for the sake of time and clarity. As a disclaimer, I am not an expert in ENM explicitly, but as with all things sex and sexuality related, I do have a breadth of knowledge on the topic. So there are three main structures within ENM. First, there is polyamory, which is typically known as having a romantic or sexual relationship with more than one person, with the knowledge and consent of all involved. Secondly, swinging is considered to be more of a social practice and is usually practiced by couples where they attend parties together and swap partners throughout the evening. And then finally, there is everything else. So sometimes put under the umbrella of ethical non-monogamy. This can include relationship anarchy, where every individual ensures that their relationships and friendships and sexual partnerships do not prescribe to a hierarchy of importance or value. Or sometimes a person will choose to avoid entering relationships altogether and instead prefer to have sort of like fluid, non-traditional interactions with people. So we're going to break down each structure a little bit more, and I also just want to impress upon people that this is not an exhaustive list. Much like gender identity, people who consider themselves part of the ENM community have an expansive understanding of how relationships and sexuality intertwine, and each person is unique in their perspectives and practices. So with that said, polyamory's had a bit of a moment in the last several years. It's featured more in popular media, so shows such as You, Me and Her, really putting non-traditional relationships on the public radar. Recommend it though, it's a pretty good show. Then there was Sense8, which brought fluid multi-partner relationships into the sci-fi genre. Also an absolutely killer series, even just without the poly content. Really sort of makes you think. And then, of course, there's reality TV. So things like Married and Dating or even Sister Wives has really capitalized on the curiosity that many people have about having multiple relationships. So media representation is all good and well, but what does the science have to say about the prevalence of these types of relationships? And are they able to function like a traditional monogamous pair would? The answer is yes and no. So the point of polyamory, or ENM for many people, is to reject the social norms of monogamy and embrace what is termed a more expansive version of love, sex, and romance. So people's own perception over what functional and good looks like isn't really set against the same markers as monogamy, hence the yes and no answer. People in polyamorous relationships may consider their friends and other sort of people in their lives as just as important as their sexual connections, and sometimes even blur the lines between these, acknowledging that love can be expressed in many different ways with different people. Some polyamorous people have a hierarchy to their relationships. So perhaps there is a primary partner, which might be someone that they are married to or in a long-term relationship, someone they live with, who is otherwise known as a nesting partner, or someone that they share child-rearing responsibilities with. And then their other relationships sort of like branch off from this key person and can include other committed relationships, casual dating, or any number of potential options really. And then, so your partner's partner is often called your metamor, and the associated group of people who may all be dating, or some dating and some not, is referred to as a constellation, which I think is really kind of pretty. So constellations can be described in shapes as well. So it's a whole thing, but essentially, so there is like a V relationship perhaps where one person is dating two people, the V, and then there might be a double V. So essentially there is, say, this top person here is dating this person, and then that person in the V is dating this person's dating that person's dating this person, this one's dating this person, but like these two aren't dating and the bottoms of the V's aren't dating. It can get pretty complex. Then you've also got like a square where like four people are all dating in some way or another. Basically, it's just very helpful to draw your friends a map if you want to explain your polyamorous connections to them. The visuals can really help to clarify that your girlfriend's wife is not your girlfriend, but she also does have two other girlfriends, you know? Anyway, in 2020, Dr. Justin Leigh Miller's research on consensual non-monogamy was published in the Archives of Sexual Behaviour, and he found that 1 in 3 people surveyed had consensual non-monogamy fantasies, and over 80% of those reporting that they wanted to try it in the future. Men and non-binary people were more likely to have E&M fantasies, and people who identified as anything other than heterosexual were also more open to exploring these types of relationships. Gusselman and Garcia in 2021 found concurring results in their study, which showed that 1 in 9 people in the United States had engaged in some form of non-monogamy in the past, and that 1 in 6 people wanted to do so in the future. Other research from 2017 saw as many as 1 in 5 people wanting to try open relationships or similar. So it's not a niche thing anymore, and many people are turning to social media for support and exploration and research, which I guess is why you're here, right? I will have a list of resources at the end of this video to do some further research with like polyam creators that I know are the real deal. So stay tuned for that. What about swinging? So this is such a funny little trope that's been around since like the 70s in media. So it's like the keys in a bowl. It's not such a subtle indicator that this is like a sexy swappy party. But the idea, like the interest in having multiple partners isn't a new idea. In the 60s and 70s, the interest grew around swinging and multiple partners. So there were many social and political events leading up to that time that made people question what relationships even needed to be. So things like the women's liberation movement, the Vietnam War, even obviously the invention of the contraceptive pill. These all contributed. And so typically swingers report that they engage in partner swapping together. Both people will attend a party and will often engage in sexual play in the same room as each other, but with different partners. So that's often the extent of their exploration, because things like maintaining an emotional connection, having frequent play partners or visits, or playing without your other partner is actually pretty rare. But couples who've added swinging to their sex life often say that it's something that helps to keep the spark alive, and the mix of taboo and novelty keeps the excitement high. Unfortunately, swinging is sometimes seen less favourably by broader society. So 2 studies in 2016 and 17 by Cohen and Matzik et al. Respectively both found less positive attitudes towards swinging and open relationships than to polyamory. So this might be because polyamorous communities appear to be structured in similar traditional ways. They value love, commitment, emotional connection, whereas swingers and open relationships are often monogamous couples who have sex with other people, which is, I guess, pretty against what people would coin as the typical relationship, like what a typical relationships look like. But again, queer people were more likely to view all forms of ethical non-monogamy as valid and saw these relationship styles more positively than their strictly heterosexual couple counterparts. My personal opinion is that LGBTQIA+ people have a broader opportunity to consider experiences outside of the norm, because they themselves have moved away from traditional expected heteronormativity, rigid gender, and sexual identities. That opinion is actually also backed by the research, so that's nice. And then finally, there is relationship anarchy, which really is the broadest of the 3, and it is a word that has similar flexibility to queer. So relationship anarchists typically don't have a hierarchy within their relationships. They may practice their relationship style as a solo agent, preferring not to put explicit labels on any of their relationships, and to be untethered from what relationships should look like. Relationship anarchists are highly individual in the way they construct their relationships, and often tend to prioritize decentering one type of relationship as more important than the other. For instance, their platonic friends might be as important and fulfilling as their sexual or romantic partners, but there is actually little research on this subset of E&M, and so I will need to do a more comprehensive scope of the literature if you want to know more about this style of E&M. Interesting fact I came across: in sex therapy and counselling spaces, Finn et al. Found that among therapists who considered themselves E&M positive, they still reported that the non-traditional relationships were the root cause of an individual or couple's therapeutic concerns. So essentially, they were like, yep, polyam is all good, but that's the problem. That's why you're here. And this really points to how deeply rooted the hegemonic mononormativity runs. But the tides are slowly turning. So with education, exposure, and discussion about E&M, normalizes the practices. So essentially the TLDR is, if you're looking for a professional to talk to on the E&M topic, make sure that it is someone who has worked with community, or preferably a part of the community, or work with other more marginalised forms of sexual expression. So like queer or kink counsellors, to ensure that your needs are met in a way that is as transparent and supportive as possible. Oh my goodness, my foot's fallen asleep. This is what happens when you film after your mic didn't work the first time and you have to do it again. Why am I 36 years old? Okay. Now, we also need to talk about whiteness, which I understand is an uncomfortable topic for some, but let's just sit in that feeling for a little minute, because ethical non-monogamy has been very loudly co-opted by white, typically heterosexual, typically able-bodied, and typically financially well-off people. So this is partly because much of the scientific research has used people in these categories in their studies, and partially because Black, Indigenous, and people of colour or BIPOC communities may be less inclined to share their divergent relationship practices due to the very long history of inequity and persecution, genocide, and the legislating of their bodies in white history. So I am a white cisgendered Australian woman, so I'm not going to be speaking on behalf of BIPOC communities, but I will just say that the narratives within modern E&M is often framed as this progressive new approach to relationships, which completely and conveniently ignores the undoubtedly thousands of years that BIPOC people have practiced E&M. So there's that. In 2022, Rutsaz, which I think I'm pronouncing that right, pointed out that the overall critiques of like heteronormative monogamous relationship narratives has actually been questioned for over a century. Feminist and queer theory has been used to question why relationships operate the way they do, and with whom, and for what purpose, and why the benefits, and the power differentials, and all relationships are different. Like, they're really asking the why questions here. But that is a lot of theory, and I think I really need to do a deep dive in a part 2. So if you have any questions or elements you want to know more about, please leave a comment. I am also across all of the socials with the same handle, Sex Talk with Gillian May. I'd love it if you consider subscribing, and if you would like to see a part 2, let me know. Okay, bye. No, not actually okay, bye yet, because I promised resources. So online, there are a few creators that I really like. The first one is Clementine Morrigan. So they really have quite a, I'm going to say, radical space on Instagram where they share all sorts of things, but some, information and thoughts on polyamory. There is also Polyphilia blog, which has been around for quite a while. The creator is really cool. And then there's also Chill Polyamory. So those are my sort of Instagram-y recommendations. Let me just click this down here. Hopefully you can still hear me, because we're going to go to the bookshelf. Okay, let's check the sex library. Where are we? What do we want to know? Where do we want to get information from? Oh, okay, so unrelated, but these are my 2 original copies of Sexual Behaviour by Kinsey. It was just such an excellent find. None of these are the one. Where are we? Sex book, blah, blah. Oh, yes, okay, so Polysecure is a great one if you want to do a lot of reading. And then there is also the follow-up, which was Polywise, so that is a really good one. I have Justin Lehmiller's book, which is, come here, tell me what you want. So that is just a good sort of an all-rounder about people's desires. And then another one, Sex at Dawn. So that's like a super, super classic around polyamory. Probably one of the most classic books is The Ethical Slut, which came out in, I want to say like the 80s, the 90s. And then the very lucky last one, Opening Up by Tristan Taormino, who has been like one of my freaking idols since the dawn of time. So check out Tristan's book. And yeah, there's a lot of literature out there now, but those are just a few little recommendations. Okay, now, really bye.